What's poppin', guys? Welcome back to Sam Talk Sports. Let's talk about the NBA trade season, especially breaking news right here, right now. Brooklyn Nets trade James Harden to Philadelphia 76ers for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Adrian Drummond, and more. Oh my gosh, guys. I had to return to break down this trade for you guys. This is a blockbuster trade in the NBA. I love the NBA trade season for trades like these, it affects the whole landscape. And honestly, overall, I feel like both the Nets and the 76ers are winners in this trade. But I feel like the Sixers may have given up a little bit too much. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into my thoughts on this trade. But overall, I feel like both the Nets and the Sixers benefit, especially this season, from a trade like this. Alright, so once again, shout out to ESPN for breaking the news for me. I love ESPN. And also Woj Bomb. Look at the new starting lineups for the Nets and the Sixers. I think the Nets with Simmons is huge because Simmons, obviously he has had a tumultuous couple of, basically the past half a year, 6-7 months. He has been, fighting with the Sixers, and I feel like, his downfall, especially in the playoffs that season, was his lack of shooting ability. He, especially when he just passed up that dunk while under the basket against Trae Young. But I feel like Simmons is going to flourish with the Nets because if you look at the Brooklyn Nets starting lineup, especially now that Seth Curry is now with the team, KD, Irving, these guys are shooters, man. You add in a Patty Mills off the bench. Ben Simmons doesn't really need to shoot that well. He's not going to have that pressure when he was playing with Joel Embiid on Sixers to have to score a lot of points, and even though Simmons has, some areas, aka his shooting, that is quite below average, at the end of the day, Simmons is an elite defender, Sorry, I was getting a little bit too excited, but Simmons is basically every year so far in the NBA, he has been a DPOY candidate, and I think the Brooklyn Nets really is struggling with the defense, especially on the defensive end. Steve Nash, he's more of an offensive coach. He has an offensive mind, so I think Simmons will add that extra layer of defense which Harden hasn't been able to provide for the Nets, and that's huge, especially in the playoffs. Simmons, he's gonna lock down opposing point guards. And I think Simmons over Harden for the Nets team is fantastic. For the Sixers, if you look at their starting lineup, once again, Embiid, Harden, I love that pairing. I'm just a little bit disappointed in the sense that they gave up a little bit too much, in the sense that they gave up not only Curry, Drummond, but also 2 first-round picks. I think, especially the 2 first-round picks, was that really necessary? Obviously, one is in 2027, so that's a lot later down the line, but I feel like they gave up quite a bit for James Harden, especially if we look at the situation regarding the contracts of Harden and Simmons. Harden is in his last year. He has a player option next year, so imagine if Harden leaves after the season. He didn't feel like the Sixers was his team, and obviously with Harden, OKC, Rockets, and now Brooklyn, and then boom, Sixers. He has been kind of switching lots of teams, so it's not guaranteed that Harden is going to stay with the Sixers past this season. So this is a risky trade for the Sixers in the sense that they gave up Simmons, Drummond, Curry, who is a great shooter. I think he's going to flourish in the playoffs with the Nets. 2 first-round picks for Harden, for a potential rental, situation if Harden chooses to leave, and who knows about that. Meanwhile, Ben Simmons is under contract for the next 3.5 years. So if Simmons plays up to his potential, and he doesn't really even need to improve his shooting that much to be a solid option on the Nets team. The Nets are in a relatively more comfortable situation with 2 additional first-round picks and Seth Curry, Drummond, 2 quality rotation options for them. And if you look at the standings right now, Brooklyn Nets, 9 straight losses. That's crazy. And they're in the 8th seed right now. I see them, vaulting back in the top 6. Even though I think the Eastern Conference is going to be super competitive, but with the addition of Simmons, I mean, that's going to be a huge change of pace for the Nets, because Harden, he doesn't really play that much defense. So, if you look at the opponent point per game, 111.1 is not great. And if you look at the top 7 teams, even the Wizards or the Knicks, I mean, the Nets really need to improve on their defense, and Simmons is going to provide them that. Curry will provide them shooting. Drummond is an option off the bench at the center position. For the Sixers, I've been very impressed with them so far this season, because they're the 5th seed. They haven't had Simmons all year long. As purely looking at this season, suddenly you basically give up Curry, you give up Drummond, and you bring Harden because Simmons has not played. I mean, the Sixers, with Tybal, their defensive stalwart in the starting lineup, I like the Sixers. I think the Sixers are here to stay. I think both the Sixers and the Nets improved dramatically through this trade, especially for this season. And if you look at the Sixers stats, Joel Embiid, Harris, Maxey, 3 quality top 3 options here. You add in a Harden, then you got Milton, Niang, Korkmaz, Green, Tybal, like I mentioned before. The Sixers are looking solid. I still feel a little bit like, oh man, why did they give up on Seth Curry? Seth Curry, he's having a quality season. Look at those shooting numbers. He's gonna be very helpful in the playoffs for the Nets right now. But the Sixers, they have Maxey, so I think the Sixers will be alright giving up Curry and Drummond. Meanwhile, like I said before, Ben Simmons, yeah, he has had his shooting struggles. He kind of flopped in the playoffs. But let's mute this for a sec. There we go. But purely speaking, for the Nets, the way they're built, Harden, Simmons. Honestly, I would prefer Simmons because, like I said before, his defense, his ability to be a complementary piece to KD, Irving. He doesn't really need to shoot that much. He doesn't really need to demand the ball as much as Harden, and his defense alone is going to be a great presence on the Nets team. And man, honestly, I think, like I said before, both teams improved and won this trade, but I'd give the Nets that higher up level, in the sense that if, let's say, the 76ers, this trade, they're at the A tier, but the Nets, they're at the S tier with this trade. I mean, 2 additional first round picks. And look at the team they have right now. I know Joe Harris has been out, but Aldridge, Mills, Irving, Durant, Claxton, Griffin, Edwards, Cam Thomas, even Bruce Brown, Bembry. I mean, this Nets team has so many different options now. You add in a Seth Curry, you add in a Drummond at the center position, shooter, defense, and also I think Drummond is more of like a 15 to 20 minute per game type of center. He's not going to, obviously as a Pistons fan, I've seen him play. I think he's gonna contribute to the Nets in short spurts, kind of like the JaVale McGee situation in the Phoenix Suns. And overall, I'm just super looking forward to the Nets and the Sixers, especially how these new superstar pieces gets incorporated to each team. Yeah, overall, I love this trade. It's one of those rare situations where it's a blockbuster trade, and I feel like both teams benefited from it. But I feel like the 76ers took on a greater risk, and they have a ton riding on this season, and whether James Harden is satisfied with the team, because last year of his contract, if he chooses to walk, the Sixers will be in a world of pain. But I can't wait for the rest of the NBA season. The Sixers, the Nets. Imagine if they meet in the playoffs like a 3-6 matchup or a 4-5 matchup. I mean, imagine that, and let's just say like Simmons hits a game-winning shot to send the Nets to the next round. I mean, oh wow. I want to see these two teams meet up in the playoffs, in the first round, second round, who knows. But wow, the NBA trade season, it's an exciting time. Trades like these gets my heart rate up, gets me pumped. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Can't wait for more NBA trades to happen in the next couple hours, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Don't forget to live a spicy life. Peace.